Hello, this is Werewolf the Podcast, episode 137. We're carrying on with our werewolf being in heaven, and today he's going to have fun with the archangels. Yay! Please go to the description and look at it and see the links and stuff. There are things to follow there. The Facebook group's brilliant. Go along to that if you want to join it. And there's Instagram and TikTok and all those kind of things if you want to follow us on social media. That would be great. There's also ways to support the show, because that's great of you. Lots of people support the show in lots of different ways, so thank you very much. And there's going to be another podcast come out on the 27th, which is a Saturday, which is going to be looking at another author's book. It's going to be looking at Il Lupo, so we're going to have a little chat about Gregory Alexander Sharp's book. Hope you can join me for that. I suppose, really, if you could review the show, if you could tell people about it, that would be great. But let's just get on with it, eh? Bye! So, I know it's annoying, but like at this point in every show I have to kind of go over what's happened in the last one, because you might not have listened to the last one, and if you didn't listen to the last one, then I've got to go over this one so that you know what's going on really, when basically you should go and listen to the other ones, because do you know what, they're really, really good. Yeah, they are. I'm not just saying that. I've got reviews and like stars out of 5 and all sorts of things that say it is, so go listen. So what's happening then? Right. Our werewolf has died. Our werewolf has died. Yeah, he's gone. He's dead. I know. It's been a long time. 138 episodes or some shit like that. I don't know. Something. Our werewolf has died. Our werewolf has been to hell, where he wasn't welcome, to be honest. He met Lucifer herself, and he upset her. Yeah, pretty significant, actually. He annoyed her to the point where she booted him out, but because she is the person, the demon, the devil, the thing she is, she didn't dump him any old place. Oh no, she decided she'd go and drop him off at once in heaven, at Heaven's gates, and gave them the issue that she had once had. She just took him back. Yeah. Please go and listen to the other episodes in the season to understand what the flip is going on. Oh yeah, I've got a challenge to try and take out lots of the swearing. Yeah, I like swearing, fuck, but I'm going to take out a lot of the swearing. So I'm going to try and replace it with nice words like flip and fluff and, I don't know, cunt. They start at episode 112, and I mixed in with all the other things that go on in the strange podcast. I mean, that's the episodes, that is, not the swearing. So if you go back to 112, you can start off with this story. I know it's a long time back, but do you know what? It's worth it. So Will, our departed werewolf, met Derek. Yeah, Derek. It's a good name, Derek, isn't it? The Pearly Gate attendant. Yep, he's the officer at the Pearly Gates, sat at his desk, and Will is currently waiting for senior management to come along and sort out an issue. Will is our hero. He's kind of unaware of the big issue. I don't think he's realised that he is the issue, and that when he finds out that this might become an issue in itself, he just wants to see what exciting things will happen in heaven. He's never been here before, so Will is willing to explore all the relevant paths that a person, he's a werewolf monster-y type thing, can take. He will get back to living somehow. He knows he will. He knows will get back. Anyway, he misses his werewolf soul Fenrir, who is also feeling a little lonely on the ethereal plane. All those miles. Is miles appropriate? I don't know. Let's just say miles away. So let us continue our story and see what will happen. Derek, the gate attendant. I am blessed to be the gate attendant to heaven. Well, not the gate attendant. There are 12 gates, but I have never met any of the other gate attendants. I would have thought that we would have met in meetings and things, but I've been here for nigh on half a century now and not met any of the others. I'm one of those rare things in the world, a proud man of faith. Of course, pride is a sin. So let's pretend I didn't say that.
I am a man of faith. I've lived a life of servitude to God and did all the things a good person should do to get into heaven. I never had sex out of marriage. Well, I never got married. Well, I never had sex. I never met the white woman, or a woman who would even be interested in multi-platform 3-dimensional spreadsheets, which I found strange. There are also no old ladies in the Doncaster Train Spotters Club, so I never met any woman that had any of my interests and that I believe in a relationship is extremely important. I never did drugs or any of that vicing, whatever vices there are. I did not have any. I never really coveted anyone's ass or anything. I was never violent or prideful. I mean, my BR94 steam locomotive 4 gave me a little pride in life, but it's a very, very rare 00 gauge train. So I think the governor could accept that I could be allowed a few moments of pride when it trundled its way around the track in my loft. Actually, I never really sinned because I didn't get the opportunity. I'd imagined sinning at certain times. Gladys Erskine had once walked into the office, she had, with her slip showing below her airline skirt, and I had a very immoral thought for some minutes after seeing that, but in reality, I never had the chance to sin. So I ended up in heaven, not really out of any work for myself. I could not sin because I could not sin, but, well, I didn't actually have to stop myself from sinning. What I did not think would happen when I arrived here is that I would end up looking after a gate of heaven. I don't see the reward in that, but the archangels told me it was a job only the most righteous could do. I expected, to be completely honest, I don't know what I expected in heaven, so maybe this is what I had expected. I don't know. So I did it. The job, that is. It's not the most exciting job, to be frank. It's pretty dull. The lack of the faithful in the modern world seems I rarely meet anyone. Of course, there are a few that have been perfect people come through. I mean, Mother Teresa, I met her. She was a lovely lady. The popes and the priests must go through gate number 1 or other gates, or I don't know, I've never seen any of them. It must be that gate 7 is not the gate for priests, and those of a more, heavenly quality. Otherwise, I would have met them in my lifetime, wouldn't I, these Catholic priests? I would want to meet the celebrities who have done the most good, though. I don't want them to die or anything, do not get me wrong, but it would be, lovely to meet those who did all that good on Earth. I have been here since 1987, so I expect people like Michael Jackson and Jimmy Savile to pass through soon. They must be cracking on in age, and look at everything they have done for people, especially the children, charity work and looking after them. I hope they come through my gates. It would be an honour and a pleasure. Anyway, the reason why I'm introducing myself at this point is to retell the story of Will the Beast. Hopefully you've met him in other episodes that you've listened to in the past in this series. Will turned up one day at my gate. I was on my break, so I didn't notice him until he actually woke me up. I know I should not have been sleeping, but I had nodded off. These things happen. I mean, it was tranquil. It's heaven, of course. You can imagine that it is very a peaceful place. Once I awoke, I went into work mode. We have all modern equipment here, a computer, a printer, and all that sort of thing, modern kit. My job is important. I print out the often minor sins that even the finest have committed. No one is perfect when they arrive. The only perfect beings are already here. So when you arrive, I have to print out your sins so that I can absolve them before you enter the gates of heaven. Yes, I am important enough to forgive a few sins. If larger issues arise, we bring in senior management in order to sort them out.
Senior management tends to be an angel or two. None of the really important ones, obviously. I mean, they are doing things like holding together the firmament and sending messages here and there to answer the prayers and things of the faithful. Will's printout started printing and went on for a very long time. I only had so much paper, and we got through it in a short amount of, minutes. My saintly senses were tingling. They're a bit like Spider-Man's spider sense, but just a lot more holy. I could tell this person was a wrong-un, as my father used to say. Now, every soul brought to heaven is escorted by one of our busy angels. They have to be, it's gospel and all that. So one of the ways I could tell how heavenly a soul is can be worked out by who brought it. You have your archangels who bring the most holy, or Gabe, as his friends call him. He brought Mother Teresa. That meant she was very holy. Other souls get escorted by other angels. It tends to be done on a rota basis, so it is only random and down to chance. As I said, the archangels tend to be busy with other things a lot of the time, so they don't get involved unless a near-perfect soul is needing escorting, or if the heavenly poo hits the fan. Well, to find out Will's importance, I asked for the name of his escorting angel. I felt it was odd that he was here with all these sins, and I read a few things that he had done. I could only think that there was some kind of fault in the system. I don't think murdering cannibals should be getting to my desk, do you? I cannot think of a way that someone can be forgiven for mass torturing for fun, unless you are a 14th century Spanish priest of the Inquisition, or, I don't know, an 11th century crusading knight killing for Christ. It turns out that an angel brought him, but not one of ours. He was brought by one of the ones from the basement, as we call it, the basement. The light bringer brought him. Yep, you know, Lucifer Morningstar brought him himself. This was beyond my pay grade, so I phoned senior management, and of course, who arrived but the big Gabe himself? This would be interesting.
Will.
This is Evan. It is. I'm not in yet, but I have a few sins to absolve apparently, and then I can get in. I don't know if I really want to go. Well, I suppose part of me does, but another part of me thinks that back down there on Earth would be, like, much more fun. I'm really missing Fen. Would eternity be fun without my best friend Fen? No more werewolfing? Derek, the gate attendant, is waiting with his heavenly music playing, of course. It is the girl from Ipanema. He's on the phone. How heavenly. He has contacted senior management because apparently, of course, I am a special case. I'm always a special case. Derek, well, while he's on the phone, he was staring at me, tapping the table as he nervously waited for someone to answer.
Yes. His name is Will the Beast,
said Derek to the red phone.
Uh-huh. His printout is a little on the long side. Also, I have run out of paper.
Derek tried to turn away from me and whisper down the handset. I could hear him though. I've got like a wolf's hearing, although I'm unsure if he knew what I was just yet.
No, the problem is he was brought here by Lucifer. Huh? Yes, you heard me correctly. He says he was brought here by Lucifer. That is what he says.
He turned towards me and gave me a nervous smile and readdressed me, covering the phone's mouthpiece with a ethereal hand.
It was Lucifer, wasn't it?
He asked me. I nodded. He looked at me questioningly, as if weighing me up to see if I was being honest with him. Eventually he decided and spoke to whoever was on the end of the line.
I frankly believe him. Okay, that would be great. And can you please hurry it along? This is not the most heavenly of feelings that I'm feeling.
Derek put the phone down and placed it back in the drawer. He smiled at me and drew himself up the desk again and steepled his fingers and brought his mouth to the tips of his fingers.
They are sending someone along to meet you. They shouldn't be too long. Can I get you anything? An apple or something?
He asked. I shook my head and turned away from the desk, looking around. The air was so fresh and fruity. This was a lovely place. It was a lot duller than hell, I had to admit, but it was a lovely place. Then there was a sudden burst of light behind me and the sky flashed brightly. I turned to see a giant halo of light float above the city walls. Rainbows and sparkles surrounded a central dot that was now approaching us. I could now hear heavenly choirs and stuff as it flew towards me. Someone was making their big, impressive entrance. I was a bit gobsmacked, as they say over here. The light that moved towards us was now containing a silhouette of a human with, enormous wings. Yes, an angel. This was getting better. I'd never met an angel before. That's wrong, I didn't, because I'd never met a heavenly angel before, because Lucy had been a hellish one, hadn't she? I don't know. Here it came, an archangel, apparently. Derek was not even looking. It was as though he'd seen this all before and he was not too bothered that one of the light beings was making its way here. He seemed to be trying to straighten his desk a little and hiding key items like his thickly tar-coated coffee mug. Eventually the beautiful being bounded out of the sky onto the earth, onto the heaven, I don't know, and stood in a pose as if to be worshipped by all watchers. He raised his arms and looked as if we should respond with a round of applause and maybe a cheer. He was surrounded by floating cherubs that held his garments and just basked in his glory. I have to admit at this point, he was just super gorgeous, very manly with long flowing blonde hair. I know that doesn't sound, manly, but in this case it was. His body was perfect. I mean, Men's Health cover perfect. He had blue eyes that sparkled in their majesty. His face was a chiseled Superman, clean shaven and handsome. As you can imagine, I disliked him intensely at first glance. Probably not how one should respond to this heavenly man. He wore wisps of silk-like material that covered his bits as he stood. After posing for just a little too long, he turned to Derek and smiled, and it was one of the most beautiful of smiles, of course. "Good morrow, brother Derek. I hath come to be of service to ye," he told Derek, and then bowed to him as if being, subservient or something. Equal respect. Bollocks like that. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say bollocks. Bottom, no. Derek, in his chair, smiled and stood up sort of awkwardly and bowed and sort of didn't know what he was doing. He offered his hand to the angel, but the angel had no idea what he was supposed to do with it. It was cool to see the offered hand of Derek suddenly sort of change direction and go to scratch the back of the man's head in a manner so that it wouldn't seem like he'd offered that hand in the first place. I laughed out loud, as the kids say, and a heavenly stare turned to me. Those eyes melted me and I relaxed as he searched my soul. Another powerful glamour. I would have to work out a way to stop this nonsense. I shook my head, trying desperately to clear the sense of love I felt for the man. That healthy love that you feel in an appropriate manner for the worthy. You don't know it? Good on you. Again, just like Lucifer had done, he saw the whole of me by staring deep into my amber eyes. I could sense him searching my mind and seeing the horrors that I'd committed. But unlike most, he seemed not to be affected by what he saw. At first, he wasn't affected. After a while, he slowly started to be affected by what I'd done. It slowly trickled into that perfect mind that what he saw wasn't good. It wasn't nice. I hadn't made simple mistakes. I'm not a guilty human soul, but I was another thing. After what seemed like far too long, anyone should have unfiltered eye contact with anybody. His eyes shut off their search and filled with tears. His wonderful face broke into a picture of sadness and misery as he looked at me. I felt pretty damn awful as he cried. Yeah, me. Felt awful. My heart was cracking, and I wanted the being to say it was all okay and that whatever the issue was could be resolved. I hate these glamour things. They get me to feel stuff I don't want to feel. For some godforsaken reason, I didn't want to disappoint this gorgeous creature. I wanted it to love me and care. This was too much. And the only valid emotion in this context was anger at what was happening. It was not enough to be angry. I would need an upgrade to first class rage. I was raging. Now, let no one tell you that anger is a destructive emotion. You can get a lot of shit done when angry. I tell you, this was torture beyond anything that hell could have given me. I was hurting so deeply. So I punched the celestial being as hard as I could in the fantastically formed face with every ounce of the hate I held. I don't know why I did it. His head flew back as the shock of blonde hair followed the direction of the power of that punch. Everything went into slow motion as the fist landed. It was the most accurate and elegant of shots that landed completely cleanly on the perfect nose that he presented. I felt that nose crunch under the blow and felt it compress against the skull as my fist slipped to the left-hand side of that now deconstructed projection and continue its journey by slipping deep into the orbit of the eye socket. Once my fist was nestled deep in that socket, it had nowhere else to slip, and the full force of the blow was transferred into the head of the being. It was a cracking shot, even if I do say so myself. I'd thrown it like a fastball right from my foot, and it had hit with everything I had. If I'd missed, I would have ended up on my front in a pile lying in front of him. If he had noticed it coming and moved even slightly, I would have missed it, but he didn't. He seemed to watch it as though that was the normal thing to do. He seemed to watch it arrive and land on his face. It was as though he'd never been punched in the face before, and that this was not something he could understand. The time came back to its usual sort of relative state, and the angel fell on his arse, holding his face and squealing his protestations. Derek was now stood up in the pose of a man, reaching to try and understand what had just happened. He was open-mouthed and shocked. It must have been one hell of a punch, though, because my hand hurt like hell. One hell of a punch, because my hand hurt like hell. Anyway, I was shaking my hand to try and get the sense of feeling back into it. The angel was now lying flat on its wings on the cloudy floor, staring at the sky through a bloody mess of a face. I stood over it now, trying to again shake the life back into my hand. I must have hit the swine, the Gabriel with a super hard headshot.
You just punched an angel!
Exclaimed the little man behind the desk, standing and placing his hands on top of his head in a look of not knowing what the fuck to do-diness. At this point, I may have done something not so clever, but when things get confusing for me, I often find that a massive amount of violence can often solve the problem. My head started to make excuses for what I'd done. I did not have any, really, excuses, that is. I just punched this thing because I couldn't deal with the way that it made me feel. That's reasonable, is it not? No? I know it's not, but I did not have any other ideas at the time, and punching it was the first and final thought that arrived and was being processed by my frantic brain. Derek now sat down again on his little office chair, leaning his elbows on the desk and covering his open mouth with both hands. I noticed at this point that the chair was one of the cheap ones that you get in those shitty offices everywhere. You know, the ones that pretend to be comfy but end up being purgatory. Purgatory. Get it? The man's head was in his hands and he was rubbing them over his face and trying to rub the nonsense of what he'd just seen out of him. Poor Derek. This must have been so confusing. I could hear him mumbling things to himself.
Oh, I just got Gabriel punched in the head,
he told himself. I think he was telling himself anyway. I think he was blaming himself for me hitting the angel. I turned to Derek and tried to make him feel better. Why would I do this? I have no idea, but I put it down to the final wafts of Gabriel's dying glamour. It's not your fault, Derek. It was me who decided to hit him, I told him. This, well, it didn't seem to help. He just sat there rocking back and forth in his seat, holding his head and repeating that I'd punched Gabriel. I again tried another tack. It can't be the first time that someone punched an angel. Can it? I asked him. The man stopped rocking and went silent before quietly trying to tell me through excessive amounts of withheld anger that, as far as he was aware, he'd never heard of anyone punching an angel before. I shrugged at this and had really no more sort of words of solace to give him. It was what it was. The heavenly being was still lying on its back, breathing heavily while holding its mashed nose in its hand. I went into my sorry act and went up to him and knelt on the floor and helped him into a sitting position to look at the damage that I'd created. I gently pulled the hand away from his face and stared. Oh dear, that was a mess. Of course, because it was a mess, I did what I normally do and laughed in response. It was not the best move before reassuring something. Fuck's sake, that's a mess, mate, I told the angel. The angel returned his hand to his nose that was not now an angel's nose, but the wrong angle's nose. What did you do that for? It asked. I had to think. I don't know, I told him honestly. It just seemed like the correct thing to do. I did not think about it, I just let it go and there we are. I mean, I don't really have an excuse for my behaviour, I just did it. It's just kind of a natural kind of response for me, I told him. You punched me in the face, the angel said. Yeah, I replied. You punched me in the face, it repeated again. Yes, I did, I repeated again. Why for in heaven did you do that? Again it asked. At this point, I was getting a little bit sort of annoyed. I don't know, I explained as though talking to a dimwit. I helped the angel to his feet. He was still a little wobbly on his perfect feet from the blow struck, but he managed to balance himself as he continued to stroke his mashed nose. Blood was now dripping from his chin. I took some rough printer paper from the desk and held it to the nose of the angel. It didn't help. The paper just hurt his face and was, well, it wasn't very absorptive, was it? Printer paper isn't. The man-angel thing shook free of my grasp quite rudely and placed both hands on the desk as he faced Derek. Derek was terrified. Derek was horrified. Derek was staring at him. Is it bad? He asked the little man. Derek didn't say anything. He just looked at the angel's face and nodded his head and then looked away. I was standing behind him now and feeling awkward about what I'd done. I felt awkward, but I would never take back what I had done, to be honest. You, he said, referring to me, you are supposed to see me and just fall in rapture and worship at my feet. I am the Archangel Gabriel, first of my kind, most beloved of my father's minions. You shouldn't punch me, he told me. I felt A little admonished now, and could not make eye contact again with the creature. I just walked back and forth, swinging my arms and looking around while thinking. Well, I told him, shrugging. There was brief silence as thoughts passed through minds. Derek was miles away, and I could see him in a state of not knowing what the heck to do. Why is he here, Derek? Asked the angel. Derek went to the paper in front of him and the green screen of the ancient computer, trying desperately to find an answer to why I was there. After several desperate minutes of searching, the little man pushed himself away from the desk and sat with his arms crossed in a position of defensive body language.
I don't know,
he told the angel.
He just turned up.
He just turned up? Repeated the angel.
Yes, he was just here when I was working. He arrived in a lift.
In a what? Asked the angel.
Apparently we have a lift now,
mumbled poor Derek. I could see thoughts passing through the angel's brain as he turned his once pretty head to mine and looked at me questioningly. How did you get here? He asked. I can't remember anyone being booked from the Angel Brigade to bring you here, he told me. I smiled and sort of gave him a facial shrug. The devil delivered me? I told him. He listened, looked at me, and laughed. You what? You were delivered by who? The devil? I nodded. Again there was silence while this sunk in. Which one? He asked. Derek now was enthralled by what was happening. She said she was called Lucifer Morningstar? I told him a little embarrassed. Again a moment of stunned silence. She? She? Oh yes, I said. Most definitely a she. I've got a nose for these things, I told him. Impossible! But I can sense lies and you're not lying, Gabriel told me. Derek, pass me the phone, please. We need to sort this out. There you go. In this week's episode, a werewolf punched an angel. Doesn't happen very often, does it? Have you ever heard of an angel being punched by a werewolf? Not just any angel either. The angel Gabriel, you don't think he's supposed to be a nice one, isn't he? I'm sure it's going to go downhill for him next week. Join us for the next exciting episode of Werewolf the Podcast. And remember, God loves you. Bye.